Greetings and welcome to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Thursday night. Glad to be representing EOG. The three letters stand for Ion Gaming. EOG.com, a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. A lively online community there at EOG, led by our head moderator, King Revolver, a young sports bettor out of Scottsdale, Arizona. Boat, and Trip are our contest coordinators. Mighty Marone helps us with the content in the main forum. A lively group at EOG. I suggest you visit and check out the main forum. It's fun and free. Registration is free and no hustle whatsoever. It is what it is, a free online sports betting forum. It's dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. We look for point spread winners as a group. We're leaning on a collective wisdom. We've got a lot of smart guys, not just sports bettors either. Also horse players. I'm always impressed with our community of horse players. I'm a frustrated horse player, not a winning horse player, but a frustrated horse player from long ago, turned dedicated sports bettor. But I apply a lot of horse racing principles to my sports betting action. In fact, later in the program, my best bet involving tomorrow's game between Kansas City and San Francisco, an intra-league game in Major League Baseball with Vargas on the hill against Bumgarner, that will involve a horse racing angle that I like. And in horse racing, you're always trying to determine two things. One, how fast is your horse? And two, and more importantly, how fast will your horse run today? So there's two keys. You've got to quantify how fast your horse is, how quick he can run the given distance, and then how fast will your horse run today at the distance, on the surface he's competing on, with the jockey aboard, etc. And the days between races are important. The spacing of the races, everything matters. And you're trying to be a comprehensive handicapper, and it's an interesting battle with the wagering public. The tough part about the horses is they're taking about 20 cents on the dollar. The takeout is extreme. Sports betting, that takeout is reduced to less than 5%, smaller with other bets. If you can find reduced juice, instead of laying $1.10, you can lay $1.05 in some spots. You can make a run at it and try and gamble and win. Horse racing, very tough. You better be among the elite to gamble and win on the ponies, but it can be done. And with sports betting, like horse racing, where you're trying to find out how fast is your horse and how fast your horse will run today, same thing with sports. How good is your team, and how good will your team play today? And what I find is oftentimes, instead of trying to put a number on each team in the league, I like to kind of put a range on each team. Their best game and their worst game. And there's a difference, obviously. And that's where situational handicapping comes in. How good will your team play today? Are they at home? Are they on the road? Are they coming off a win, coming off a loss? How good will your team play today is the central question. So you're always looking for that team that's going to throw their best effort out there, maybe against a team that won't be at its best for today's game. I had two plays on last night's show, two winners. I needed to make up for some of the losses earlier this week. I was very fortunate with one result. It was a winner that should have been a loser, and I think that's an important lesson, too, for handicappers and gamblers. You've got to recognize when you get lucky, and I got lucky in a WNBA game tonight. Let me first, though, recap the winning play. It came at Coors Field. I liked under the total of 10.5 runs between the Rockies and the Cubs. Flande against Hendricks, and I've been talking about this young Kyle Hendricks for some time now. He's in the big leagues now. He made his 5th major league start. He was outstanding today at Coors, going 8 innings, giving up only 2 earned runs, tremendous composure on the hill. His results are better than his stuff. I mean, his stuff's okay. Not dominating stuff, but he just, he was able to outsmart the Colorado Rockies and, beat back the elements there at Coors Field. I mean, he pitches smart on the hill, and I think that goes a long way in big league baseball, especially against a team like the Rockies. So Kyle Hendricks was good. And if you go back and look at his 5 starts, here's something I like to look at. He allowed 4 runs in his first ever major league start. He gave up 3 runs in the first inning of his first major league start. And for me, I just put a line through that. Might have been jigs. He was playing against the Reds on the road in Cincinnati. He gave up 3 consecutive hits, 3 earned runs, but he settled down after that. Since that time, he's been unhittable. He's really been tough. He's given up 6 runs in almost 30 innings of work after that first inning in Cincinnati. What I liked about him, 2 things. One, he went to school at Dartmouth, an Ivy Leaguer. So, again, he pitches smart. But 2, he's very brave. And he was very aware of what was happening in terms of his upcoming starts. He was quoted as saying before the game in St. Louis against Adam Wainwright that he looked forward to going head-to-head against Wainwright. And then in Los Angeles, a few days before he was going to pitch against the Dodgers, he wanted to pitch against Clayton Kershaw. That's the kind of kid he is. I mean, he relishes the competition. He didn't get to meet Kershaw, but just that mindset, I think, is going to be very powerful moving forward for the 24-year-old Kyle Hendricks. And there's another player in the Cubs you might want to watch too, Javi Baez. He played in his 3rd big league game today. He hit 2 homers today to support Kyle Hendricks. 6-2 was the final, so it was safely under the total of 10.5. That was a right result. Right side and right result. Always good to see there. My winner today that should have been a loser, and by the way, I had more than 2 plays. I won a little less than a unit. So the other action was choppy. But this game in the WNBA, very fortunate to go my way. Minnesota home to Chicago. Lynx against the Sky. I laid 7.5 with Minnesota. I was trailing most of the game. I mean, it was a back and forth battle, but it was a very evenly played game for 38 minutes, even 39 minutes. And then inside the final minute, Minnesota able to outscore Chicago 11-0 to end the game. We had a clear path foul. We had several free throws from Maya Moore, a couple from Simone Augustus, and things broke my way with the WNBA results. So very fortunate to win that game. If you had Chicago plus the closing price of 8.5, my condolences to you. You were on the right side, but caught the wrong result, and that can happen. NFL preseason football. We're watching some of the action from tonight. All games are now final after San Diego defeated Dallas 27-7 at Qualcomm Stadium. That game stayed under the total, and it brings me to this next point about betting preseason football, actually betting totals in any sport when you come to think of it. It's especially true, I think, in preseason football. We saw, 4 of the 6 games go under the total, 5 of the 6. If you got a good number on the Denver-Seattle game, there was 37s out there, also 37.5. So if you bet the game, you probably should have cashed. But 5 of the 6 games, let's say, went under the closing total at Chris. So our friend Ed the Statman, who was with us yesterday, struggling early on with that theory that all week 1 games in the preseason will go over the total. Not the case, despite we're seeing a lot of penalties thrown for defensive holding, and one would think that would help the scoring. But today, not the case in the NFL because of this reason. In the NFL preseason especially, but in all sports in general, it takes 2 teams to make the total. You need contributions from both squads. If you don't get it, you're going to be hard-pressed to go over the total. And that may sound simplified, but it's so true in preseason football for this reason. Once one team gets a commanding lead over the other, it seems to turn into more of a scrimmage than ever before. Now that the game has been virtually decided, I think oftentimes you see teams play between the 20s. And actually tonight in San Diego, it was an interesting situation. Dallas was down 27-7. They did try to score in the final couple of minutes of the game, but they were unable to do so. They were inside San Diego's 10-yard line with a 1st and goal, and they tried 4 plays. I think they gave up the ball on downs back outside their 10-yard line. So, the execution can be rough a lot of times, too, in the fourth quarter of these games for these offensive units. Oftentimes, defenses are ahead of the offenses at this time of year as well, with the aggression that's needed on the defensive side of the ball and the precision that's needed on the offensive side of the ball, which sometimes isn't there. So more unders than overs so far in the NFL preseason. We'll see what tomorrow brings us. I'm not much of an NFL preseason guy, although I will say this, if I find a good bet, I will make the bet. I don't really seek them out. One thing you really have to do is search those quarterback rotations. I know the Kansas City Chiefs today, they put up 41 points against Cincinnati. But the Chiefs-Bengals game, 41-39 was the final. Our friend EOG contributor Heim was fortunate to get a 2-point conversion late from Cincinnati to get inside the number. Actually, get a push from that game, but it was a push that felt like a win, taking 2 with the Bengals. Kansas City announced before the game, by the way, and this is key when you're betting the NFL preseason, they announced that the 4 quarterbacks they were going to use. Kansas City was going to use Alex Smith in the first quarter, Chase Daniel in the second, Tyler Bray in the third, Aaron Murray out of Georgia in the fourth quarter. So at least you know what you're gambling on, and who you're gambling on. But you got to do your research. You got to learn. I would much prefer to bet week 2 in the NFL preseason than week 1, just to get a feel for what these teams are about, what they'll have to work on, see if they can improve from week 1 to week 2. We're going to talk NFL football on tonight's show. Eric Austin, our featured guest, will be both the AFC East and AFC North. I'll ask Eric about the recent trend in scoring, too, in the NFL. Points are plentiful in NFL football. Last year, teams scored 11,987 points in the National Football League, and we're seeing a lot more passing than we've ever seen before. Games averaged 46.8 points per game last season. The season before, it was 45.6. Season before, 44.4. Season before that, in 2010, it was 44 points. So scoring up considerably from 44 points in 2010 to now 46.8 points last season in 2013. And about the receiving touchdowns versus rushing touchdowns, we're seeing a lot more passing than ever before, and passing into the end zone for touchdowns. 804 receiving touchdowns last season against 410 rushing touchdowns. Let's step aside and take a quick timeout right here. When we return, Eric Austin to be in studio. We'll chat it up with Eric about the AFC East and AFC North. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
go to EOG.com.
If you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sports books in San Jose, Costa Rica,
go to EOG.com.
And finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
go to EOG.com.
You get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like Sports Options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
And we are back. The EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with you on a Thursday night. Now joined by my featured guest, Eric Austin, Las Vegas-based sports betting pro. We've had a good week this week. Mike Corrigan on Monday, Computer Bob Tuesday, Ed the Statman yesterday with some interesting numbers for us. And right now, it's Eric Austin. He's been on the program before. He can talk all sports, football, basketball, baseball, and more. Eric, good evening and welcome to the program.
Good evening, John. I'm following a bunch of heavy hitters there. I hope I can follow their good example.
We'll find out if you can. At the end of the program, we'll put you on the spot for a play or two. Always good to get selections from our guests, but Eric takes a back seat to no one. Not only does he have the excellent memory and can kind of go back and retrace a lot of things with what happened, but he's always looking for edges moving forward as well, and to compare the two, looking for situations that might be parallel. I saw some information today on Team USA basketball. I'm sure you're disappointed to hear that Kevin Durant will not play with Coach K's crew. He cites that he's mentally and physically exhausted. I'm wondering if the Paul George injury had anything to do with KD's decision.
I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, he played a lot of basketball, so, you see an injury like that and you realize, hey, I'll be a free agent in 2 years. I'd rather play in the Olympics than the World Championships. And so I imagine that had something to do with it. I think he realizes, and most of the NBA players are going to say, hey, the superstars will play the Olympics. The guys 20 through 50, you guys get the World Cup and the qualifiers. So I think that's what you're going to find going forward.
Spain will be a tough foe in the upcoming championships. They're being held in Spain, too. And Spain also did something smart by recruiting Serge Ibaka for their front line. They've got a front line of the Gasol brothers and Serge Ibaka. And in 2008 and also in 2012, EOG contributor Haim cited that Spain gave the U.S. all they wanted. And that was with guys like LeBron, Kobe, Carmelo on the team. So this will be an interesting challenge playing without Team USA's best player that was on the roster, Kevin Durant. Now, I'm not sure who the best player is, but Derrick Rose coming back from injury. We'll see what he offers. See if Kyrie Irving has grown up quickly. But in terms of best player, that'll be an interesting question for Coach K. But I know, Eric, before the George injury and the Durant departure, I know Team USA was favored to win that gold medal. I think they were minus 350, while Spain was about plus 350, and the rest of the countries were big, fat, long shots. I'm wondering if Team USA will still be favored in their present form.
I'd say they'll probably be favored, but it'll be very small. And I'd say this, you got to wait until the final roster is set, because I think now what they may decide to do is go with more big men. You might see a Andrew Drummond on the team, DeMarcus Cousins. They're probably going to load up with Paul Millsap. They're probably going to load up with 3 or 4 big men, and then a bunch of little guards, because really they don't have any swing players left. They have Gordon Hayward, they got Kyle Korver, they got DeMar DeRozan, but none of those guys are really takeover players. So they're probably going to go big and small and just tell the bigs, stay out of foul trouble. We're only trying to beat Spain, so we'll load up on bigs when we play Spain, and probably go to a 4-guard offense and bombs away when they're playing everybody else.
They did say goodbye to Millsap, but maybe
Okay.
they'll revisit that decision. They also said goodbye to John Wall and Bradley Beal, and that brought up something from a gambling standpoint, Eric, that I jotted down in my notebook. I'll be interested when the Washington Wizards play either the Chicago Bulls or the New Orleans Pelicans this coming NBA season, because Wall and Beal might not be too happy with guys like Tom Thibodeau and Monty Williams.
You're right there, but I think they didn't want to take one without the other, and so they kind of said, hey, we're not taking Wall, and Beal's probably 5th on the pecking order anyway, behind Curry and Irvin and a couple of the other guards, Rose. So I think that's why. One other thing is if they take Cousins, DeMarcus Cousins, as I said before, and Andre Drummond, I believe Anthony Davis is on the team. So I would imagine those 3 bigs will be on the team, and they'll play 2 of them at the same time, because both Drummond and Cousins has played power forward, and Davis can play power forward or center. So I think you'll see 2 big power forwards on the court at any one time and 3 little guards, and we'll just try to run them.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, because one thing about international basketball, Eric, your big men better have decent feet. Guys like Andre Drummond, DeMarcus Cousins, I worry about them 25 feet from the basket, only because they're going to be put in those pick-and-pop situations with international players. And, boy, the big men overseas, they're a lot more versatile than our NBA post players.
Very true, but I think you're going to find, they're probably going to play a tad bit more physical, and rotate those three. And then Davis will be the key guy. He can play the big forward. He can play the center. He might even be able to play some small forward if they're trying to throw a 6'9", 6'8" guy out there. So I think he'll be the key defender, and they'll play some zone. That's one reason why they have Boeheim on the team, because as a coach, because they'll rely on zone with a mixed match type of team that they have now.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Eric Austin. We'll go on record with selections at the end of the program. I've got an MLB play that I like. We'll hear what Eric has to offer. Eric, preseason football. We saw 6 games on the slate tonight. We were able to watch 2 of them from the NFL Network. Baltimore and San Francisco played on the NFL Network. Harbaugh Bowl 3, they were calling it. The Ravens beat the 49ers 23-3. And I just got done watching the game from Qualcomm. San Diego 27, Dallas 7. Boy, you've got to credit the NFL Network. They're showing us some live preseason games, but they're going to show us all 65 NFL preseason games, either live or tape delay, before the season starts.
Yeah, well, that's why they created a network for this time of year. This time in the off season is when the NFL Network is at its height, because they can go ahead and show all these games 24 hours a day and take advantage of the network. So that's really their strength. I played a couple NFL games tonight. I played under in that San Diego game, and I had under in the Raven game, and under in the Bingo game. So I went 2-1 tonight. So, but I'm not a really NFL preseason guy, as I said last week. But I took a shot at a couple unders tonight.
NFL preseason totals right around 37 and 38. You don't see a lot of variation, although we did see that very low Hall of Fame game total open at 32 or thereabouts, yes. 32 and a half. But it was bet up quickly. But it seems like that's the number in the NFL preseason, Eric, 37.
Yes, 20-17, 23-14, they figure it's going to hit right around there. So, and now if the team's going for 2 and, going for extra points or not kicking extra points, it falls all kind of funny numbers in the preseason. But that 37 is the key number.
What do you think of their strategy to make extra points the first 2 weeks of the NFL preseason and place the ball at the 15-yard line? I'd earlier read that it was going to be at the 20-yard line, but I guess it's the 15-yard line. They snap it back to about the 22 or 23-yard line. Makes for about a 33-yard extra point. Do you like that idea?
That's the stupidest thing they can think of, John, for this reason. They want to stop injuries, or shouldn't me say, control injuries and modify the players getting hurt. Now you're going to move the extra point back to where it's a field goal, to where now reasonable teams will try to block it. That's idiotic. I mean, leave it like it is. They're saying that it has no excitement in the game, but the point is it's an extra point. It's not supposed to provide excitement for the game. So leave it like it is. You're going to have less guys getting hurt on the kick game, and that's a stupid idea if they really want to institute it. I don't think they really thought it through.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Eric Austin. Let's preview the upcoming NFL season. Eric was on with us last week talking some NFC divisions. Let's talk AFC now. Look at the AFC East and the AFC North. Any discussion of the AFC East begins and usually ends with the New England Patriots, 12-4 last season. They've won 5 straight division titles, 10 of the last 11. How will Brady and Belichick fare this coming season?
John, you gave me a curveball with this division or I should say a slow curve at that, because this is New England and Three Sisters of the Poors, the Three Little Pigs, you name it. I mean, the other 3 teams, they're not very good and won't be good. So this is New England's division to win. I mean, they have the best coach, the best quarterback, and all they're trying to do is win for home field. They're trying to go 12-4, 13-3, whatever it takes to get home field and force Denver to come to them this year instead of going back to Denver.
New England's regular season win total, 10.5 over, minus $1.70. For the other squads in the AFC East, I see win totals of 7.5 with Miami, 6.5 with Buffalo. The New York Jets splitting those 2 teams, a win total of 7 over, minus $1.50. Miami, the New York Jets, or Buffalo, which team finishes second in the AFC East?
I would say Miami, but I think the Jets and Miami they could both be 6-10 maybe 7-9. I mean, the Jets may be the better team, but you don't know who's going to quarterback them. And Miami's probably going to have a hangover from last year's debacle at the end of the year. So, and I'm not a big Philbin fan, so he could be on shaky ground. John, I wanted to say something, though, about New England's their 10.5 win total minus 170. Guys love betting these NFL totals, these win totals, but I don't know why anyone would want to lay 70 cent, 50 cent, 40 cent on win totals when, A, they're tying up their money. So let's say theoretically you bet $1,700 to win a dime. Now you tied up $1,700 that you could have bet 16 different ways over the course of the season on one particular bet. I mean, guys love betting them, but I think there's bargains out there, but I think people overstate the fact that there are bargains, that you have to understand that your money's tied up, and then you can look to hedge or you can look to get off a position, but now you're doing more things than just making one bet, in my opinion.
And how about the Buffalo Bills? Doug Marrone, the head coach there, 6-10 last season. I saw Marrone interviewed the other day. He didn't impress me. The Bills, historically miserable. They've not had a winning season since 2004. They haven't made the playoffs since 1999. They haven't won a division title since 1995. That's almost 20 years. The Buffalo Bills on the skids right now.
Well, try this combination. You have a college coach in the second season. You have Jim Schwartz, who's the defensive coordinator, coming in, and Eric Manuel, who played half a season last year. So they're going to improve very, very slowly. But I'd say this, the fact that the team may be up to sale, I think you're going to have some very rowdy crowds, and I'd be surprised if they didn't go 5-3, both straight up in ATS at home this year. I think they'll be decent at home. So if I was someone looking to play Buffalo, I'd really consider playing them when they're at home because I think they're going to put out all their best efforts when they're playing at home.
Eric, you told us you're not big on regular season win totals in the National Football League. What wagers in the NFL do you like to make?
I play a lot of totals in the NFL during the season, and I'll play sides, obviously, week to week to week. But those are the two things I concentrate on. But more totals than sides, actually, because I don't think they're as sharp on their totals as they are on their sides. More overs or more unders, or you look both ways? I look both ways, but as you were saying earlier, now the league is headed toward overs just because there's more passing in the game. And I think in the NFL, you're always going to get points. It's just a question of whether you get points to go over the game or whether they get inside the 30 and then kick a field goal. So I would tend to look over, but it's always varied on the total itself. You know, if you're playing the Raven games over, you know, you may get a lot of 20-17 games, and then the totals may be in between 37 and 40. So it's based on the team mostly.
You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. John Kelly with Eric Austin, Las Vegas-based sports betting pro. We're previewing both the AFC East and the AFC North. I'm guilty of following Johnny football. I wasn't a big Johnny Manziel fan at Texas A&M. I'm still not. I'm just curious as to see how his game will play at the professional level. The reason I didn't like Manziel at Texas A&M, when he burst on the scene, I loved the nickname Johnny Football. The style that he had, too, was okay by me. What I didn't care for, Eric, was the rubbing of the thumb to the fingers, and when he'd score a touchdown, he was quite the showboat. I also read some reports that some of his teammates didn't care for him. By season's end, I think that was smoothed over, but I'll be interested to see how Johnny Football plays out in Cleveland. One thing we know, he's got a high-profile friend in the National Basketball Association by the name of LeBron James.
Absolutely. And I got to say this, John. I'm an old-school guy in how I look at a lot of things. But when it comes to players, anybody under 25, I cut them slack. If you come into the league and you're 21, 22, 23, I don't expect you to act 35, 33. 40 because you know no better. So even you say, people get up in arms that he's rubbing his fingers saying, I'm money, money, money. I mean, that's what every kid grows up doing in the last 40 years. When we're out on the schoolyards, when we're out on the playground, when we're with our friends, or even when we're competing with other teams, sportsmanship is not lost, but you always want your opponent to know you're the man. And so I don't knock these kids for trying to promote they're the man. I mean, football's a team game, don't get me wrong, and all sports are team games. But who gets the blame when the team loses? Usually the quarterback first. So, there's no I in team except when we want to point out the failure in the team.
That's a point well made. I'll take it too, Eric, and I'll adopt it in my arsenal. Under 25, right, they can get a pass for not knowing, how they should conduct themselves. Although there's no right way either.
That's my point.
If you could do it, right?
That's my point. I mean, no, not everyone can be Muhammad Ali, obviously, but you don't have to be braggadocious, but you don't have to be Tom Brady or Peyton Manning and be, I won't say non-charismatic because they're charismatic, but so dull that people say this is the right way of doing things. There's no right way of doing it. If you have talent, your talent will speak, and ultimately how good you are will be based on your performance, not the other things that people say, well, he shouldn't do this or shouldn't do that. I mean, his talent won him a Heisman Trophy. It wasn't the money. It wasn't Kevin Summerlin. It wasn't playing against Nick Saban. His talent won him the Heisman. And so when they're young, they're gonna do what everyone would do in those positions.
Cleveland's the biggest price among the 4 AFC North entrants. They're the long shot in the division, although it's so wide open. They're not without a chance. I see where Cantor Gaines.
They're without a chance. They're without a chance.
What's interesting, CG Technology has them at only 4-1 to win the AFC North.
Yeah, that goes back to future betting and giving everybody a fair shake. But, I mean, why would you take a team 4-1 when they haven't made the playoffs but once in 10 years and they haven't won the division since they've been reincarnated? So, I mean, they give you odds, but they're not giving you true odds. And so they have no chance because they don't have a quarterback, in my opinion. The other 3 teams at least have established their quarterbacks, and that's why they've all been in the playoffs, and 2 of them have won the Super Bowl. I mean, people look at Cleveland in that division as the weak sister, and they just look to beat them every chance they have because you can't win the division without winning 2 games against Cleveland.
Mm-hmm. And about Cleveland, their recent struggles, each of the last 3 seasons, they've been unable to win away from home, 1-7 on the road each of the last 3 years. We know about Brian Hoyer. He played early last year before going down with the torn ACL. It'll be interesting to see how Johnny Manziel fits into the equation. Word out of Cleveland is that Hoyer will start Saturday against Detroit. Manziel will see time, and then Manziel will get the start in week 2, and then by week 3 of the NFL preseason, they'll tell us if it'll be Hoyer or Manziel to start the season. Eric, you've told us before, it'll be Hoyer more likely than not. They're not going to throw Manziel to the Wolves too early, but this Cleveland Browns team, it's interesting, the total on Saturday at Ford Field between the Browns and the Lions. I mentioned 37 being the average total that we're seeing in the NFL preseason, being a key number on top of it. But the Cleveland-Detroit total I see is up to 40. And there's another game that had my interest, too, at Soldier Field, the Bears and Eagles, 2 teams that figure to light it up through the regular season. Their total is 42.5. Gambling intuition, Eric. My intuition tells me, and I won't play either game, but my gambling intuition tells me to play those 2 games over before under, kind of taking the market's lead and figuring that points could be scored in both Chicago and especially indoors in Detroit on Saturday.
Yeah, I would probably agree with you indoors with Detroit and probably Chicago because Trestman's probably going to have his 3rd-string quarterback out there throwing too. But, I would say this about Cleveland to not bash them, but you got a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach. I mean, in the history of the NFL, has that team ever won their division coming out of the blocks with a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach? It probably doesn't happen. So 4-1 to win the division, I mean, they should give you a lot more than that.
About the Pittsburgh Steelers and their pedigree, in terms of coach-quarterback combination, they've got Tomlin and Roethlisberger. One edge, too, for the Pittsburgh Steelers is their schedule. They don't travel very much. In fact, it's the NFL team this season that travels the least, the Pittsburgh Steelers. They travel 3,537 miles, and they do not travel west of Nashville.
Yeah, they're my pick to win that division. The Bengals are going to play Denver and New England, and the Steelers and the Ravens both don't have to play them. And not only do they not have to travel very far, but if their offensive line is completely healthy, which it hasn't been the last 2 years, their offense is going to be very good, and their defense is going to bounce back. And in my opinion, as good as Harbaugh is as a coach, I think Tomlin's still the better coach in that division.
How about the Cincinnati Bengals? You talked about playing Denver and New England. Andy Dalton got a contract. I think it was 6 years, over $100 million. But as you told us last week, only 2 of those years are guaranteed. Those NFL contracts, you got to read those closely.
Funny money. They lost both of their coordinators, so now it's all on Marvin Lewis to pull it together. I mean, I would say that they're probably going to win 9 games and maybe miss the playoffs because they're going to have a hangover from going all out last year, winning their division, going 8-0, and then blowing a playoff game. I mean, I don't think they're mentally strong enough to recover from that. So,
and the Baltimore Ravens, Eric, we're going to find out a lot about the Ravens in the month of September. They opened the season with 3 straight division games. We know their coach-quarterback combination is proven in John Harbaugh and Joe Flacco.
Yeah, but once again, they got to prove that they can run the ball. And without Ray Rice, they may come out the first game and play very well. But I think they'll lose game 2 when they play the Steelers the 4 days later. And I'm not a Flacco fan. I think they caught lightning in a bottle when they won their Super Bowl with him. And they got the look of 8-8, 9-7 as well. I mean, they're going to have to catch some breaks to even compete in that division with the Steelers, in my opinion.
He's Eric Austin. I'm John Kelly. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour. EOG stands for Ion Gaming, EOG.com, a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. Handicapping an NFL game, Eric. Maybe next week we can talk a little bit about handicapping a college game and the differences between the two. But when you sit down on a Sunday to watch an NFL game, what are the notes you're taking? What's important to you? Do you both watch the game and then follow it up with an inspection of the box score? How do you go about picking NFL point spread winners?
Yes, I watch the game, and then I go back and look at the box score. And I also, I'm a very historian, so I like to compare what the teams have done a few previous seasons, especially when they have a coach and players who've been on the team for a long period of time. Case in point, Flacco and Harbaugh. I mean, they made the playoffs every year. They were a decent team every year, but they were one and done or win a game and lose a game in the playoffs. So when I watch games, I'm more interested to see how teams lose the game. That's what I look at. If one team is laying 7 and they wind up losing or winning by 14, I'm more interested to see how the teams play against each other. I don't worry so much about the matchups until actually they play, and then I see whether or not they were out-coached, they turned the ball over 4 times, or simply had a few bad calls that altered the course of the game.
Which game is more important to you, Eric? If I told you could only look at one game in a matchup that's coming up, you could either look at the team's most recent game or you could look at the team's most recent meeting with today's opponent. Which would you choose?
I would probably always choose the team's meeting, because I think the recent form is important, but I think when you play an opponent that you see on a regular basis, then you're already prepared to play them, and you throw out what you did before or what you have in the future. I think you really focus in on that. Now, if you take a team that don't play very often, let's say Denver and Seattle, then I would say current form is more important, because then you have to come in with a certain amount of confidence. And in my opinion, the NFL is all confidence. You get on a roll early in the season, you make some breaks, and then you play better. Vice versa, if you turn the ball over and you start off slowly, it's hard to regain the confidence that it takes to go out and suffer the grind, suffer the hits, and go through what an NFL team needs to go through to be productive on a Sunday.
I like that. And every team has a heartbeat. And you know who shows it well? When Fox goes inside the locker room and you get to see the coach speaking to his team. I think that's tremendous insight. Kind of get the feel of the squad inside the room. And, obviously after a victory, most teams are emboldened, and after a loss, they're down. But you kind of get a feel for the relationship between the coaches and the players when you see the locker room stuff.
Absolutely. And I'll say this, John. The NFL, in my opinion, is an organizational league where the teams with the best organizations find the players, they put them in the right positions, they stay with their coaches, and year after year, that even if they slip up somewhere, they're going to recover. I mean, look at a case in point like Green Bay. They went 8-7-1, and they didn't have Rodgers half the season. A, because they have a lot of quality players. B, they believe they're Green Bay, so they expect to win. And their competition, namely Minnesota, Detroit, Chicago, don't have that same mindset, that same pedigree of confidence and winning regardless of who puts on the uniform. And I think that's a very underrated factor in the NFL. You have a level of teams that have proven that we are so-and-so, be it the Pittsburgh Steelers, be it the New England Patriots, and when you play for us, you're expected to do the job. If you play for the Cleveland Browns, Buffalo Bills, Jacksonville Jaguars, Dallas Cowboys for that matter, you don't have the same expectations. And I think that's a key factor in how I look at games and how I look at teams, is the confidence that the team has in themselves to recover from bad situations.
And the big reason for that, Eric, is obviously the NFL salary cap. When you make sure that these teams are fairly even in terms of money spent, then it puts a premium on their organization, the decision-making skills. You can't cover up mistakes with money at the NFL level, where you might be able to do that in other sports. Not the case in the NFL. And I like that idea of the culture of each team, to know the culture. You mentioned Green Bay. They just expect to win there. You know, they've got a winning culture. And the pedigree, I think, is so important. And likewise, on the flip side, winning begets winning. And I think with the Buffalo Bills of the world, losing begets losing. You know, here we go again mentality on the sidelines starts going in. Once one mistake is made, more follow.
And absolutely. And this is another thing. Look at it this way. If you're a free agent and you have a contract offer from Buffalo or Pittsburgh, you might go play with Pittsburgh and be on their practice squad team or some other part of the team and wait for a chance to be moved up. Because you know if you go to Buffalo, they got a bad organization, you might get overlooked, or you might get thrown in and not properly developed and be gone in no time. So the NFL is the organization is very key to how successful the teams are. I mean, it's easy to see.
Yeah. Can we say the same about just about every sport? I know our friend Andy Iskoe, he taught me that lesson years ago. You know, you study teams, not just the coaches and players. You don't study from the bottom up. You study from the top down. You look at the owner. You look at the general manager, the front office personnel, and then the coaching staff, and then the players. You know, can we say that about all sports, Eric, or is it just specifically more important to the NFL than the other sports?
No, I'd say you could probably say it in all sports, but I think the one thing about the NFL is because you're playing the best of the best, the coaching and the organization really matters, because it only takes a couple players to step in and do a job for you that the other team doesn't have that can put you over the top. I mean, so I think in the NFL, the organization is because you're dealing with more players and you have more coaches and you're trying to develop them. I think that's more important in that framework of the NFL than any other sport, because you're dealing with more players. You can find more diamond in the rough, or you can stash guys and develop them.
Let's step aside and take the final time out of the program. When we return, we'll go on record with selections. I've got an MLB play that I like. I'm going to bet the total in the Kansas City-San Francisco game. We'll find out what Eric likes for the Friday card. You're listening to the EOG Sports Hour.
There's no such thing as a sure thing, unless you're talking about Ion Gaming. Ion Gaming is a website dedicated to the hearts and minds of sports bettors everywhere. If you're looking for smart, sophisticated sports handicapping information and insight,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the latest news on the ever-changing landscape of Nevada's race and sportsbook industry,
Go to EOG.com.
if you're looking for the most recent developments involving the worldwide sports betting scene with an emphasis on the leading sportsbooks in San Jose, Costa Rica,
Go to EOG.com.
and finally, if you're looking to join an online community of sports gamblers where registration is free and the information is priceless,
Go to EOG.com.
you get the idea. Why gamble on other sports betting websites when Ion Gaming is a sure thing?
And I love a sure thing.
Hi, this is Rick Alec, president of Sports Options. Sports Options is a sports information tool designed to give sports bettors of all types the necessary edge needed to improve their bottom line. With Sports Options, you'll never lay a bad number again. We provide you with live odds from the leading sports books in the world, from Costa Rica to Curacao, London to Las Vegas, and everywhere in between. Sports Options also provides the fastest and most accurate injury information, lightning-quick score updates, and game analysis from 30-year handicapping veteran Mark Simons. We offer affordable services for players of all levels, starting at just $99 per month. To see which service best fits your needs, you can take advantage of our 7-day free trial. No credit card is needed. Just go to www.sportsoptions.com and click on the free trial link. I'm confident you'll be impressed with our product, and you'll find it the most complete and comprehensive on the market. In fact, if you don't like Sports Options after 30 days, we'll refund you 100% of your subscription costs, no questions asked. Go to sportsoptions.com for all the details, or call 702-835-1743, and one of our friendly customer service representatives will be happy to help you. Sports Options, information you can bet on.
Time now for the JK Play of the Day. This is John Kelly's single strongest recommendation against the current numbers at the M Resort here in Las Vegas.
Game 929, 9:30, the San Francisco Giants and Kansas City Royals. Madison Bumgarner against Jason Vargas. San Francisco favored at minus $1.20. The total on the game is 7.5 under. You've got to lay $1.20 on the under, and that's what I'll do. I like under the total of 7.5. Two tough lefties in Bumgarner and Vargas. Bumgarner, the more powerful of the two, but Jason Vargas, he's coming off an injury, appendectomy surgery in July. So this is his second start off a layoff. I mentioned a horse racing handicapping angle. That's what I've got here. Vargas was knocked around in Oakland, but I think he'll be better this time around at home. He's the kind of lefty that's not overpowering, but he tricks opposing hitters' eyes with the changeup. Bumgarner can be overpowering. The reason I like this total under 7.5, there's a couple. One, it's an important game. If the season ended today, and it doesn't end until September 30th, but if the season ended today, the San Francisco Giants and Kansas City Royals would occupy the second wild card spot in their respective leagues. How do you like that? The Royals would make the playoffs, and they played great baseball lately. Our friend Computer Bob on Tuesday night chronicled their success of late. The last 2 weeks they've been on fire. I've got them at 12-3 in their last 15 games, and I'll tell you this much. Their pitching staff, the starters, solid, but the bullpen, spectacular. I mean, 1 through 12, that pitching staff is one of the best in baseball, especially if you get to the late innings in a close game. Herrera comes in the 7th, Davis in the 8th, and, of course, Greg Holland in the 9th. He's got 32 saves on the season. So if this is a tight game late, I don't think the Giants are going to score much. They struck out 12 times today against Milwaukee in a 3-1 loss. They were 1 for 6 with runners in scoring position. And we know about Kansas City's struggles at the plate. I mentioned the outstanding pitching. Boy, if the hitting would ever catch up to the pitching, the Royals would really be a factor. But this team is dead last in Major League Baseball in home runs, and it's not even close. 66 home runs as a team, the Kansas City Royals. The Major League average is 99. That's what San Francisco has, 99. The leaders have 137 and 136. It's Baltimore and Toronto, respectively. But Kansas City as a team has hit 66 home runs. Their cleanup hitter, Billy Butler, has 6 home runs on the season. Eric Hosmer, he has 6 homers too, but he won't be available. He's on the 15-day DL. So under the total of 7.5 runs in the Kansas City-San Francisco game, that's my best bet on the Friday MLB card. And by the way, tomorrow night, Eric Strasser, a.k.a. Palm Tree, will wrap up the week. PalmTreeHandicapping.com is his website. Excellent MLB opinion. He knows the game as a fan, but more importantly, he knows it as a gambler, and he'll be here tomorrow night to join us and try to handicap the Saturday card. Eric Austin, you have a play for us tonight as well. It's an American League game. It's between the Detroit Tigers and the Toronto Blue Jays. Sanchez and Dickey is the pitching matchup. I see at Pinnacle right now, Detroit on the road is a $1.13 favorite.
Yeah, I like Detroit, even though they're having hitting struggles the last few days in New York. Toronto lost a big game tonight, 2-1 to Baltimore, where they could have picked up a game in the standings. And Dickey hasn't been very good all year long, and I believe Detroit can manufacture 3 or 4 runs, and that'll be enough. Sanchez knows that he's got to pitch well to keep up with the Joneses on his staff, and he's been pitching well. He's just been letting one bad inning get him out of the game. So I think Detroit will come out. They'll have their bats hitting tomorrow, and they'll pull out probably a 4-2 victory, 5-2 victory against Toronto tomorrow.
We'll recap those 2 selections at the top of tomorrow night's program. Eric likes Detroit over Toronto, and I like San Francisco and Kansas City to go under the total of 7.5. With about 5 minutes remaining, I asked you how you handicap a football game, Eric, how you pick apart NFL games. How about an MLB game? What's more important to you, sitting down and watching the game or poring over the box score? If I gave you a choice, you could either watch the game or study the box score. You couldn't do both. Which would you do?
I'll always watch the game, John, and I'll probably go to my grave watching the game. I mean, sabermetrics are fine and all, but I much prefer to watch the game. I play a lot of totals in baseball, which is a catch-22 now with the hitting not being as strong as it is. But I'm a big believer in bullpen, so I start any game that I look at, I try to figure out whether or not my closers, my setup guys have pitched the night before, have they pitched 2 or 3 days in a row, and work off the bullpen first and then work back to the starter. Because after you get past aces and the occasional number 2s, you know no one's going 7 innings, 8 innings, so you might as well look at the game from the bullpen perspective and then work from there. And I expect when I bet totals always to get 2 or 3 runs off of the bullpens of almost every team, but obviously there's teams like you say, like Kansas City, Tampa Bay when they've been going good, Atlanta with Kimbrel, where you don't expect to score. Chapman with Cincinnati, where you know if you're needing a run in the 9th inning and they come in, you're probably not getting it. But I look at bullpens first, and then I work backwards from there, depending on the starter that day.
And I'm with you, Eric. I like to be a visual handicapper. I do it both with the sports and the horses, and we've come full circle on tonight's show because I led off tonight's program talking about horse race handicapping and how important it is to know how fast your horse is and how fast your horse will run today. There's another good example in horse racing that transfers to sports is, how fast did your horse run, or how fast did he run, and how did he run fast? That's it. How fast did he run, and how did he run fast? Because that's an important factor, too. Was he alone on the lead? Did he get everything his own way? Did he break quickly and not have any competitors? Or did he stumble at the start, recover, and run spectacular after that? So it's 2 parts. How fast did he run? That answers one question. But how did he run fast? And I think we can do that in sports too, Eric. When you're watching games, how good did they play, and then were they fortunate in how they played? Did they really play to their performance output?
Absolutely.
Or did they have more in reserve? Sometimes we see teams compete, and there's more from where that came from. So it's interesting to be visual handicappers. I guess the trick is, Eric, is to know when your eyes deceive you, because there are times when we're watching games as visual handicappers where we see something and it's not always as it looks.
Right. Well, that's when you can go back and look at things a second time or look at the stats. But you have to understand what you're looking at and then understand, if you were watching the game carefully, what was the key points in the game. I think that's what people have to really focus on. Was it a key point in the first period, a first quarter of a football game? Was it a key point in the 4th inning of the baseball game? I mean, that's where games are decided when you're watching them, when you figure out what was the most important point to that team winning or losing that particular day.
Eric Austin, job well done. As always, thanks for your contributions to the radio program. We'll try to recruit you next week as well. Eric, take care tonight.
Thank you, John.
Eric Austin on the program. That'll wrap up our fast-moving show. Again, tomorrow night, Eric Strasser to be in studio and talking Major League Baseball. Want to thank all those involved with Ion Gaming, especially our head moderator, King Revolver, the rest of our staff, Boat, Trip, and more. Our conversation continues at EOG.com.